On November 13th, the D&D Adventures channel is launching for Plex and Freevee with 3 original programs: Encounter Party, Heroes Feast, and Faster Purple Worm, Kill Kill. To commemorate the launch, we had a chance to sit down with Ned Donovan, executive producer and cast member, and Brian David Judkins, executive producer and DM of Encounter Party, to discuss the move from podcast to TV, what to expect, and whether Kenku can talk. Thank you so much for coming and talking with TechRaptor today. Very excited to be hearing about what's going to be happening with Encounter Party season 2 as it hits the D&D Adventures channel. So first of all, I've got to ask, what is it like to be a part of the launch of the D&D Adventures channel, and how did this even come about?
Wow. Okay. First of all, it feels great to be a part of it. I think there is actually some really sort of interesting new content coming out with these programs. They feel like very new television shows, even though they might be sort of sprinkled with familiar genres and stuff like that. We're really dealing with some new forms of storytelling, at least on network television and stuff like that. There's a lot about the creation of it we don't know because there's 2 other projects. But what you're seeing now is what has always been the vision of Encounter Party. When we first made the podcast, which ran for 3 seasons, Ned and I kind of were actually operating a secret mission, which is that we were building a proof of concept to shop to networks. And so we got a full campaign together so we could get enough data to go approach networks and say, hey, we think this could be a TV show. When we ended up at Wizards to consult getting a license for the game, they very graciously were on our side all the way. What we didn't know at the time is that they were hunting for a program like this, but they couldn't find one that was fitting for network TV. And we were the people who shut up and said, hey, we have a way to get this down to an hour without sacrificing any of your story or fantasy content, and all we have to do is remove our personal experiences from the game. Let's just focus on the story and use Dungeons and Dragons to tell a fiction fantasy story rather than make another program about people playing a game. And they sent us to Entertainment One, who made the Dungeons and Dragons film, because then they were saddled with making these programs for the new Fast channel that was coming out. So that, in a nutshell, was kind of how it came to be. I think maybe a lot more serendipitous and a little bit more luck than we expected. But we're really excited, and the other programs are great too. So
They're so good.
Yeah, we're excited to see, where Dungeons and Dragons and gaming based entertainment can go, because it really feels like we have some new programming coming down the pipe for free, Fast channel. So good on everybody.
Yeah, so I know that your first episode is launching on the 14th of November at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific?
Correct. It'll be 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll be honest with you, I'm not clear on Central Mountain, which one they're aligning to, and then it will be 9 p.m. again Pacific.
Okay. Shifting from podcast, which is a very, open format, to a TV structure, you briefly touched on it. But how did you manage breaking down your episodes into, hour chunks for TV?
Well, Ned handles all the story cuts in the post, so I'm going to let him talk about that.
The short answer is there's nothing different from the podcast. We made the podcast by bringing everyone to Chicago. Our cast is all over the country. And we recorded the game for between 5 days, which was the first season, and 6.5 days, which was the third season. And then we would go home and I would figure out where episodes start and stop after that. We do not know in the recording process how the show is going to beat out when it's done. Brian has ideas. Brian has given me incredible railroad tracks to follow, but we fundamentally make that choice later. And it was me and fellow cast member Andrew Krug who sat in an editing bay in LA for about 5 weeks, just going. We would take a whole day's worth of footage, which was about 6 to 7 hours of gameplay, and we would just start at the beginning and we'd be taking out anything that didn't serve the audience's experience, and we'd leave little marks for ourselves saying this could be an episode ending, this could be an ad break, but we would just give ourselves little roadmaps. And when we would finish kind of a full day's work, we would go back and say, did any of them fall at 48 minutes? Because that's how long each episode is. Great, that's an episode. Or we would say like, we've got a really good one at 55, so now we have to find 7 minutes to pull. Like the story dictates where episodes start and stop, but the decision of how do you break episodes down, we don't. We play the game for, in this case, 9 straight days, and then made that choice later.
So 9 straight days, 6 to 7 hours with some cutting. How long is this season going to be?
22 episodes.
They ordered 20 because that's what we
correct.
promised. But I think we were allowed to skirt down to 18. And we ended up...
We were allowed to be as short as 18 and as long as 23 without blowing up our budget.
Without blowing up the budget. But, we maybe could have gotten more if we were less judicious with the editing. But it's so tight as it is right now.
You'll see throughout the season, there are some really beautiful scenes that we're going to be releasing as deleted scenes. There's some really, there are gorgeous moments that just couldn't fit a 48-minute structure. And they're a great scene, but they don't serve the audience's experience of the story. And every decision we make is, does the audience move along the plot alongside the players? We want the information transfer from television to audience to be simultaneous with from DM to players. And in doing so, we have to edit the show in a certain way, and we play the game in a certain way that allows it to fall naturally. So it never feels like the audience is 2 episodes ahead of us. It never feels like we know things they don't. Like it feels like when I, Ned, gasp because I have learned something, someone at home is also gasping because they learned it at the same time. And that's always been a strength of our show. That is something we really pride ourselves in, is that by making everything completely story focused, we're also all very cognizant of making the audience experience feel like ours, so that everything is aligned from player to character to audience to DM to edit. Like it all just feels like we're all on this one, snowball rolling down the hill together, rather than 2 side-by-side snowballs that sometimes change who's ahead and who's behind.
And I know some people might be doing math at home and going, okay, 22 episodes, but only 48 minutes per episode because it's an hour-long time slot. That doesn't
12 minutes of ads.
Yeah, that doesn't really equate to much. Look, I got news for you. It is more. Somehow we managed to cram in more than you might find at your own home game because, everyone's on target. We are not playing a game. We are performing. We're writing in real time. We are on target nonstop. And the sort of birth of the show was the entire concept that if you take out all the fluff and the non-gameplay that comes with hanging out on a Saturday and playing for 3 hours, you actually get about 42 an hour of just actual living in the fictional world.
Something that's also really fun about this way of doing it is there's no recall is instantaneous, right? Like what was 3 weeks ago for you was yesterday for me. And in doing so, you don't have a lot of those, who remembers the name of the bad guy? You don't have those moments, which is really helpful, I think, to letting people live in the story and never getting pulled out of it to the player level of the game, which is something we pride ourselves on.
Which, if we have another conversation at the end of the season, I can then talk about all of the reasons why that matters for writing. But I can't yet.
Which I'm always down to have a conversation post-season. So, just let me know.
TechRaptor, we'll see you in mid-April.
Excellent. Kind of on some of the stuff that you have teased, you've said that we're going to, not only see battle maps, but a variety of props, and we're going to do things never done in actual play before. Is there anything that you can hint at or elaborate on?
No. Why?
No.
No. No.
Fair answer.
Look, I write mystery thrillers and I'm pretty notoriously tight-lipped about content. Only because we want you to experience it at the same time everyone is experiencing. And D&D audiences are really smart. You guys out there listening to this, they're just smart people. And so I'm always afraid that our listeners are going to suss things out before I get a chance to show it. We'd rather, at least Ned and I as producers, we would much rather you experience it alongside the cast, because that's kind of the intent of the program. We want you right along there with them. And if you get ahead of them on your own, good on you. But we had access to some great resources. We had access to some great space. That is all at the budget generosity of Entertainment One and Wizards of the Coast. And we definitely tried to find every aspect of the game down to the writing implements that we could somehow play with and expand upon.
Here's what I'll promise you as both producer and cast member. It's a 22 episode show that does feature a majority of the time people sitting around a table playing Dungeons and Dragons. I promise you that what you experience in episodes 1, 2, 3 is not the experience of episodes 9, 10, 11, or 15, 16, 17. We are constantly changing the way the show vibes for the sake of not having a show that feels the same for 22 straight hours.
People have consumed the old show. They will have a comprehensive understanding that we sort of flow through different genres as the story goes. You know, as a TV writer, you know how to break tension, you know when to get heavy, you know when to have some light moments and stuff like that too. So we promise people a big roller coaster ride as they enjoy. Not gonna tease, but I promise you will see things you've never seen in D&D before.
Excellent. Well, it now sounds like there's that much more oomph and confidence behind it, even if the lip is zipped for now.
If we're going to ask people to sit down and consume 22 hours of their life and buy into this idea of a new sort of heightened program, we better be delivering stuff they haven't seen before. And it's got to be more than just more money and more expensive toys. It's got to be a different experience. It's got to be a different storytelling experience using the game rules. So I'm pretty confident as the DM that we delivered on that.
Ned, you're playing a Kenku in this campaign. I've got to know, do you ascribe to the Kenku are allowed to form their own words, or you have to be learning as you're going through the campaign?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually allude to it, I think, in episode 2. My personal opinion is I play what the books allow me to do. Kenku can talk. There are versions of Kenku who are repetition only. They parrot. Maybe someday we'll get into how I feel about that as it relates to the character that I've built. Flick can talk. Whether or not he is only speaking things that he learned from parroting throughout his life, I won't tell you. But Flick is not restricted by conversation at this point in his life or campaign. And maybe someday we'll get into if I believe he's been talking since the beginning or if this is a developed skill.
The rules-oriented people at home, there was a ratification in Monsters of the Multiverse, which I think came out in May of 2022. So it's a relatively new book that changed the rules on some of how language is used and learned in Dungeons and Dragons. So if you haven't read that book, you might be instantaneously confused, but Wizards of the Coast was along the entire ride. Like, they're making sure that we're, on the up and up about all that stuff.
It is a live show. It is, a lot of people in this day and age don't follow live shows anymore. If someone doesn't manage to catch it at 9 p.m. ET or PT or wherever in the mountain regions, where might they be able to catch up to it if they do miss out?
We will be on demand. We are still waiting on the exact timing between episode drop and conversion to on demand, but both Plex and Freevee, where you can watch our show, will also carry the episodes on demand after they've aired live, and it won't be a very long delay between the live and the on demand availability. The exact time frame, we are waiting on final answers from those programs. It's 100% around what is the technological conversion time frame, and we're just waiting on that answer. But it will be available on demand. I'm comfortable saying less than a week from the time the episode airs, so you could catch up before the next one is live.
And part of that is a necessity because you're likely going to need to watch things more than once.
Yeah, you should watch the episodes a couple times, and you should go back once you watch some newer episodes.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Definitely looking forward to seeing how people react once the first few episodes are out, and looking forward to watching myself on the 14th at 9 p.m.
Well, message us once you watch the next episode so we can talk more.
Yeah, don't forget, 2-hour premiere. You'll get the first 2 episodes on the 14th.
First 2 episodes on the 14th. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.